Very good, very good. Are these lights like all?
Oh, you can turn them on. On or off.
I just don't want anyone to be too sleepy.
That's how. Yeah.
So no one takes naps, right? You don't turn the lights on, they keep all awake. Well, I stimulate anyway. Thanks, Brad. Well, let's get going. So, if you haven't met me before, I'm Marcy Contreras. I'm one of the PA faculty. And one of my passions is human rights. So I usually take over this part of global health. Let's just have like some shout outs. You guys are kind of a lively group. It seems a little talkative coming in. Maybe you're frisky from the cold weather. What is just your thought when you hear human rights, or what is like the definition? Don't say the right to be human. What do you think about human rights?
Things that like people are just inherently entitled to, just by being alive.
Very good. So no matter where you live, what country you're in, it just should be a no-brainer, right? Okay. What else? Every life has value. Every life has value. Yeah, absolutely. Very good. Did you guys find any articles or anything that pertains to human rights or your profession? Anyone want to share some of that? I see nods. Did not let them. Yeah, we did it.
We had one in our PT magazine that we get for free in the mail. Everyone, it was about PTs and psychologists working together to work with victims of torture. And it was really cool because they could have a psychology session while they were doing like different PT techniques and stuff. So at the exact same time, it was kind of partnered up with people doing advocacy.
So they were torture victims?
They were seeking asylum in the States. And some of them also had experiences working internationally.
Interesting. What else did you guys find?
I found one about physicians in Australia attempting to go and work with asylum seekers from Papua New Guinea who are held in like really terrible conditions off the coast of Australia, and how they are petitioning the government to be able to go over there and provide just basic care to them.
That's interesting. I was talking to someone today that has a friend that's really big with anti-human trafficking there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and was one in New Guinea, and wanted my colleagues actually spend the summer there doing OB exams, and gynecological exams on these trafficked victims. Yeah. She ended up not coming because she came to GB.
And a lot of them are, trafficked refugees or people escaping persecution from other countries, and then they're sent to these like containment islands, or kind of what would you call that? I can't think of the word. Anyway, and they live in just like squalid.
Like internment?
Yeah, they live in like squalid, disgusting conditions because the government just neglects them. And so there were a bunch of physicians from Australia attempting to go provide just basic health care. Not because of New Guinea, because Australia was the big resources.
Yeah. What else? Anything else that anyone found? Yeah.
I read one about occupational therapists having a role in foster care and like making it more inclusive and trying to make travel from different homes to homes and making sure that they're not like occupational deprivation or anything like that.
Yeah. Is there, do you guys see more of a need for OTs in that setting, in like foster care?
I think definitely needs that. I think just human rights too, just making sure that they're getting the occupational like abilities and
Yeah.
That access to it.
Yeah, I also think there's kind of this modern idea, especially in America, where we perceive the value of people as to how useful they are and how much they can do. So there's a lot of human rights issues that have to do with if somebody has no functionality, if they have no visible quality of life, then their life is, for whatever reason, it's viewed that their life isn't worthless, or that has less value than somebody who can contribute more to society. And so I think OTs can play a very big role in that, because we are there to say, no, look, everybody, we can help people to find ways to advocate for themselves and to prove that, yes, I am still good person.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Because you think about just people with disabilities or anything, or are kind of written off many times. Absolutely. What else?
So the article that I found was training healthcare professionals to recognize their sensitive human rights. Just being able to recognize the signs and the fall of racism.
Yeah. Where did you find that?
On the National Institute
Was the person a PA?
It's healthcare professionals just in Rome, I think it's
Okay, very good. Oh, after my own heart, absolutely. Well, very good. Very, very good articles. Just some of the things that we're going to talk about tonight are the history of human rights, the UN's Declaration of Human Rights, and how and what specific articles are defined in that declaration. We're going to play some games, of course, and debate, just discuss the issue of just universality of human rights, and that's pretty much, in a nutshell, what we're doing tonight. We already talked about that. So, thinking of human rights, we think of, this inherent idea that, all humans have this right, kind of like what you said, no matter, just being human, just no matter what you are, all humans, life have value and that type of thing, that no matter what your nationality, place of residence, color, race, religion, language, any other status, that we all are entitled to the same rights. And so we'll discuss about what some of those rights are, what they should be, and that type of thing too. Certainly when we think of human rights, we think of human decency, just doing the right thing, human dignity. And interestingly, when you take a closer look, it's a lot of times our governments that are the ones that are violating human rights. And not always at the national level, but like at state levels and at a more local level, which is interesting. And you think it should be like this no-brainer, just doing the right thing or treating everybody the same and that type of thing, but it's not always so clear. And certainly we see the biggest movements just probably more recently in this century, more in civil rights and women's rights and that type of thing. So I have this video, if it'll work. Yes. Human rights. No! Gee, that's a good question. Human rights. Wow. I don't even know how to give that definition.
I would probably have to do a little bit of homework or something. Any right that I think just as a normal, human,
the rights that humans have.
This is very long debate.
Si ves que los derechos humanos, porque tú le puedes preguntar a 20 personas y te van a dar 20 diferentes opiniones.
Okay, I'm such a thing.
Like we just take it for granted that they're there, but we don't even consider what they are.
Human rights are the rights you have simply because you're human. It's how you instinctively expect and deserve to be treated as a person, like the right to live freely, to speak your mind, and to be treated as an equal. There are many kinds of rights. Most apply to a certain group. But human rights are the only ones that apply to absolutely everyone, everywhere. That means kids, old people, poor people, basketball players, garbage men, rappers, teachers, Africans, Indians, Albanians, Christians, Muslims, Kabbalists, atheists, your mom, your dad, your next door neighbor, and you. all have the exact same human rights. In other words, they're universal. But the question remains, what are they?
Name the human rights?
What the human rights are?
The right to live, equality between all people.
Right to religion, the right to...
Is there supposed to be a list somewhere I should be aware of?
According to the United Nations, there are a total of 30 human rights, which are usually lumped together and called simply human rights. They're all listed out in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which is the world's most widely accepted document on the subject. But it was a long time in coming. At first, there were no human rights. If you were in with the right crowd, you were safe. If you weren't, you weren't. But then a guy named Cyrus the Great decided to change all that. After conquering Babylon, he did something completely revolutionary. He announced that all slaves were free to go. He also said people had the freedom to choose their religion, no matter what crowd they were a part of. He documented his words on a clay tablet known as the Cyrus Cylinder. And just like that, human rights were born. The idea spread quickly to Greece, to India, and eventually to Rome. They noticed that people naturally followed certain laws, even if they weren't told to. They called this natural law, but it kept getting trampled on by those in power. Not until 1,000 years later in England did they finally get a king to agree that no one can overrule the rights of the people, not even a king. People's rights were finally recognized, and they were now safe from those in power. Kind of. It still took a bunch of British rebels declaring their independence before the king got the point that all men are created equal. Which isn't to say he liked the idea, but he couldn't stop them. And America was born. The French immediately followed with their own revolution for their own rights. Their list was even longer, and they insisted that these rights weren't just made up. They were natural. The Roman concept of natural law had become natural rights. Unfortunately, not everyone was so thrilled. In France, a general named Napoleon decided to overthrow the new French democracy and crown himself emperor of the world. He almost succeeded. But the countries of Europe joined forces and defeated him. Human rights was again a hot topic. They drew up international agreements, broadly granting many rights across Europe. But only across Europe. The rest of the world somehow still didn't qualify. Instead, they got invaded, conquered, and consumed by Europe's massive empires. But then a young lawyer from India decided enough was enough. His name was Mahatma Gandhi, and in the face of violence, he insisted that all people of Earth had rights, not just in Europe. Eventually, even Europeans started to agree. But it wasn't going to be that easy. 2 world wars erupted. Hitler exterminated half the Jewish population of Earth in horrifying Nazi death camps. All told, 90 million people died. Never had human rights been so terrifyingly close to extinction. And never had the world been more desperate for change. So the countries of Earth banded together and formed the United Nations. Their basic purpose was to reaffirm faith in fundamental human rights, in the dignity and worth of the human person. But what were human rights? Were they the proclamations of Cyrus, the natural laws of Rome, the declarations of France? Everyone seemed to have a slightly different idea of what human rights should be. But under the supervision of Eleanor Roosevelt, they finally agreed on a set of rights that applied to absolutely everyone. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The French concept of natural rights had finally become human rights. So, in summary, at first, only a few lucky people had any rights, until one of those guys decided, hey, other people should have some rights too, which was great, except not everyone agreed. And it only took a few thousand years of fighting and declarations and more fighting until everyone finally agreed that human rights should apply to everyone. And they all lived happily ever after. Except for one little problem. If people have the right to food and shelter, Why are 16,000 children dying of starvation every day? 1 every 5 seconds. If people have freedom of speech, why are thousands in prison for speaking their minds? If people have the right to education, why are over 1 billion adults unable to read? If slavery has truly been abolished, why are 27 million people still enslaved today? More than twice as many as in 1800. The fact is, when it was signed, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights did not have the force of law. It was optional. And despite many documents, conventions, treaties, and laws, it's still little more than words on a page. So the question is, who will make those words a reality?
I have a dream today.
When Dr. King marched for racial equality, he was marching for rights that had been guaranteed by the United Nations for almost 2 decades. But still, he marched. When Nelson Mandela stood up for social justice in the 1990s, his country had already agreed to abolish such discrimination for almost 40 years. But still, he fought. Those who fight today against torture, poverty, and discrimination are not giants or superheroes. They're people. Kids, mothers, fathers, teachers, and free-thinking individuals who refuse to be silent, who realize that human rights are not history lessons. They're not words on a page. They're not speeches or commercials or PR campaigns. They are the choices we make every day as human beings. They are the responsibility we all share to respect each other, to help each other, and to protect those in need. As Eleanor Roosevelt said, where, after all, do universal human rights begin? In small places close to home. So close and so small, they cannot be seen on any maps in the world. Yet they are the world of the individual person, the neighborhood he lives in, the school or college he attends, the factory, farm, or office where he works. Such are the places where every man, woman, and child seeks equal justice, equal opportunity, equal dignity, without discrimination. Unless these rights have meaning there, they have little meaning anywhere.
It's the white switch. So what do you guys think of that video? What are your thoughts? We had a history buff in one of the other sessions, so they were pointing out the flaws of history. What do you think? What about the mention of there's more slaves today than any other time in history?
There's more people today living in the world.
So like a proportionality
Yeah.
thing? Okay, so there's more slaves than more people? Okay. What else?
So I haven't checked up on the historical accuracy of this, but I heard somebody telling the story the other day, and he was explaining how during World War II, when the Nazis were sending the Jews to concentration camps and eventually taking them to execute them en masse, they took a lot of the ordinary people in the town. There's people who had jobs, they were bankers, they were fathers and husbands, and those were the people that they sent to kill them. And so I think the thing about human rights, like they were saying, is that it really is a matter of our individual choices, because even if something like this was completely written down in law, it's still up to us to make sure that that law is actually practiced. We have to have personal standards that we hold to, and we have to make sure that we treat everybody's human rights the same that we would treat our own.
So kind of like it's our responsibility to uphold the rights of others and stand up for other people. Yeah. Very good. Very good. What else?
I was just gonna kind of say like what you were saying about how the video kind of like presented like what happened, like where we were and then where we are now, and yeah, like we have things in place, but it's not necessarily enforced all the time, and it's not like we have the people to continue enforcing it. So it's just kind of like interesting to see like the actions that we should be doing.
Yeah. And it also seems that, usually there's not a law in place until someone's rights are violated, right? Until something bad happens or something goes wrong or someone's violated, rights are violated, then that's when it becomes a law or it becomes instated. And it's like sometimes even now today, in today's world, when things become a law or, I talk to, certain colleagues, I think to myself, like Australia, and now they can get married in Australia, or LGBT status, can marry. I think like that wasn't already a thing, or like sometimes there's always these laws that come out like that should have been in place a long time ago. It doesn't seem like it makes sense. What else? What other thoughts do you guys have?
Also, in the video, I know it kind of like talked about the document of the university, the universality of human rights, and then like how there's like 30 points and like, but I feel like within the points, like, I guess there's like goals or like things that aren't in place, and that's why these bad things are happening.
Yeah.
And also the fact that like maybe there's why there's a lot of action against these like things like advocating kids because like I guess selfish natures.
Yeah, or some corrupt government somewhere or something. And I think a lot of those articles of the Declaration of Human Rights is very aspirational, and like people just sitting at a table and kind of come up with these things and like, okay, in a perfect world, this is what we want.
Right.
And then, but is that attainable? I don't know. I think it's something that we're kind of always aspiring to achieve, certainly. Okay, so we have an activity. So first I'm going to pass out what they were referring to in the video, the UN's Declaration of Human Rights, the list here. And you want to come and join these folks probably. Okay. All right, so take a look at that. And now I'm going to pass out something. It's kind of like a bingo board, but we're going to do more like a blackout. So you got to make sure and get all the squares, and it'll have things like, name a civil, or political human right, that type of thing. So you'll each get a copy, but designate one person from your group to actually maybe X things off the box. And darn, I forgot to bring up the prize. Okay, so if you win, you'll just win, I guess, bragging rights. I don't have an actual prize for you, I'm sorry. I'll owe you one. You just win the prestige of getting all right. Okay, so I'll give you like 5 or 7 minutes.
Oh, you just regular.
And you don't have to use the Declaration of Rights sheet to fill out the squares. I mean, I think one of the squares says, like, what's a book about human rights? I mean, just maybe a book that you read. It could be anything. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, I'm over here trying to.
Yeah.
Oh, your head was
Right tonight?
Just draw the the yellow.
What do you, oh, organization, I just find one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are we? Yeah.
Yeah, that's the organization. Yes. That's really sad. Yes. Any country.
Yeah, like,
Oh, yeah.
I love the way your picture.
Is that how
Yeah, right.
biggest freedom?
In every single title. I mean, that's for slavery.
No, it's hard.
Okay.
Talks about how like power.
Okay. Here we go. Yes. Yes. Like, I mean,
Speech. I was gonna say speech.
right? There's a name. Right? Right. It's the rights of man, which is Thomas by natural.
Oh,
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, but that's
Well, why don't we just say and then
I got it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So, there you go.
Oh, that was Rachel.
Who has all the squares filled out? Anybody get all of them? You got all of them? Well, yeah. All right. Oh, you got somebody with all of them. You guys came pretty close. You guys came pretty close. What did you guys get? You're cheating. Hey, I see you Googling over there. So what did you guys get for the one that says human right that most disturbs you? What is the one that most disturbs you? Human trafficking? Same? You too?
Yes, same.
What did you guys get back there? Sex trafficking? Yeah, definitely. I think that and probably genocide is. What about the right that all children should have? Education? Food? Yeah. Safety? Can't put Wi-Fi. My kids would probably. What's a book about rights? What did you guys come up with? The Hiding Place. What's that?
It's a book by Marie she was Jewish and she was in a concentration camp.
Wow.
But then she got out and she spent the rest of her life traveling and speaking about her experience.
Interesting. Wow. What about a country where human rights situation has improved recently?
well, you mentioned the whole.
Oh man, gave y'all a freebie. Okay, what about human rights being achieved around the world? What did you come up with? Anything? Did anybody get an answer for that? Citizenship? I don't know. What did you guys get?
We put education for
Education.
promoting education.
Promoting education?
Very like,
We're having a hard time with that one.
Not everywhere, but like there
yeah.
are a lot of
So,
It's been improved.
that are focusing on
Yeah.
a lot of
I know this is kind of mean, but it's a trick question.
Okay, good.
It's a trick question. There's really not a human right that is being achieved around the world globally. So it's kind of a trick question. I just like to see what you guys come up with. Sorry about that. What else? Anything else interesting that you guys came up with? Just trying to think of some of my favorites. Another favorite of mine. What about human right not being achieved by everyone in this country? What did you guys get? You put what? Equal pay. Amen. Do they work at UTMB? Right to earn an equal wage, especially for women. All right, very good. Well, let's move on. You guys can keep those sheets. So you guys have been exploring Fernando, right? So you kind of know a little bit of backstory about Fernando. Okay, so here's an update. The famine has passed, and Fernando is growing up. He has started going to school. His uncle, Juan Verdad, is helping to support his family, including paying for his school fees. His mother and father are grateful to Juan for his financial help. Juan is the editor of Children Texaco's largest newspaper, The Important Times. He is interested in the impact of domestic and foreign investment on the well-being of children Texicans. Juan discovers that the wealthy, foreign, and children Texican investors are running a drug cartel through the province of Texaco, which is Fernando's home. Texicans are being threatened to get off the land and in some cases tortured or murdered. Juan publishes a story in his newspaper of the atrocities. He hinted that the investors and the government might be responsible for this. The day after publication, Juan and two of his assistant editors disappear. Dun, dun, dun. The government has denied knowledge of his whereabouts. Juan's family and friends decide to go look for him. So now you are going to go look for him. And you are going to be a character. So you're going to decide on what character you want to be. I know. Bring back the theater in you, right? Be one with your character. And you can have more than one of these characters at your table. You don't have to all like divide up and decide who's going to be who. I mean, just pick whoever you want to be. There can be multiple Juan's mother, or none, you know, whatever you want. Journalist. Okay, so you have Juan's mother, Juan's brother, the Children Texaco social worker, a priest or a nun, or an international journalist. So decide which of these characters that you would like to become, and we're going to read through some scenarios, and you're going to choose sort of an action that we decide on, and you're going to choose that based on what your character would do, not as you yourself. Student. Okay. So whatever that particular character would do. Okay. Now, once we read the scenarios, you're going to have a consequence for whatever action you choose. And if you choose to do nothing, as one of them might be, you can't choose nothing twice in a row. You'll understand as we go on. And I'll direct you. You probably wonder why is there a jail sign over there? That's weird. Okay. Okay, so Verdad's family and friends decide to go look for him. First, they go to his office at the important times. There they learn from Verdad's coworkers that he kept a special file containing revealing documents about the children Texican massacres. Upon opening the files, you discover the papers are gone. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, what should you do next? So, what would your character do? A, write a letter to the Children Texican government pleading for information about Juan. B, write a news story or letter to the editor or give an interview to a news agency accusing the government of causing the disappearance. Or C, do nothing and keep quiet. So decide, what would your character do? A, B, or C? I'll give you like a couple of seconds to decide. Okay, who would do A? We've got a few A's over here.
We have to each individual person has to pick, right?
Yeah, just your character. Like if you're a priest, like what would the priest do? Would they rise up and write a letter? Would they do nothing? So how many A's do we have? We have a lot of A's over here. Any A's over here? So A's would be write a letter. B, any B's? We got B's, a couple of B's. And then how many C's, which would be do nothing and sit quiet? Thinking you're going to do nothing? Okay, let's see what happens. So based on your A, B, or C choices, and then who didn't raise their hand? Who didn't even make a choice? Okay, you'll go into jail. Okay, the consequences, here they are. A's, you disappear. Sorry, you got to get up and go back there. You're disappearing. Maybe never to be seen again. So if you chose A, back you go. B, taken to jail, interrogated and tortured. If you chose B, come to jail. Come on, B's. To jail you go. And C, there's a crackdown, and you're just going to hang out. A lot of chickens over here, not doing anything. Really? Nothing over here?
We didn't really have, I mean, I thought we can go through each one together. So we need to choose
No.
one person.
Yeah, you're choosing a character and you choose an action.
I get to read the other.
Your whole table's disappeared.
I feel like mother and brother would be A or B. So that's
Okay, so are y'all making a choice now, or now that you know the consequence, you probably just don't want to go to jail or disappear. All right, you're gonna have to make a choice now at this next one. Okay, so Verdad's family and friends decide to visit the Director of Public Information. They ask him if he knows anything about Verdad, but he only repeats the government's official position that they have no knowledge of his disappearance. Okay, so now, based on your character and who you decided to become, what should you do next? Do you want to lead a demonstration in front of the Director of Public Information Office? Do you want to ask your local mayor for help? Or go home and do nothing? So all of you folks that did nothing, you can't choose C, go home and do nothing. So, A, so we have some A's. A. Okay, very good. You're like scared, B, A. Okay, and then who do we have as B's? The rest of your B's? Okay, let's see what happens. Okay, A's, you're disappeared. Join everybody else back there. Disappeared. Uh-oh, B, you're picked up and beaten and interrogated. You go to jail. B's.
Whatever.
C, nothing happens. And then you guys that were in jail, you get to get out of jail. We've got overcrowding in the prison system, so you get to be released. And if you chose C, which we didn't have anyone that chose C. All right. Lots of jailbirds over here. Lots of people disappeared. B, you're in jail. Yeah. You're being beaten and interrogated at this point. Okay. Everyone who remains gets together for an underground meeting. At the meeting, they voice their fears about Verdad's well-being. They resolve to find him. The government's assault against the children Texican people has stepped up. The meeting group contacts Amnesty International to put pressure on the government to release Verdad. Okay, so what should you do next? We only have a few people to decide. Actually, we'll have a couple people that were previously disappeared. You've been found. The first disappeared people, let's find you. We'll let you be found and you're back at the table. The rest of you, stay back. Okay, you're found. Now, what should you do next? If you're in jail or you're disappeared, you can't make a choice, unfortunately. A, are you going to write a story? Letter to the editor, provide information to a news agency denouncing the government. B, organize a boycott of multinational corporations thought to be involved in the drug trade. Or C, go home and do nothing. Y'all are afraid to make a choice now. Like,
Wait, what was the problem? Oh, like, what's the next step?
So prior to that, so the meeting group, you're contacting Amnesty International to put pressure on the government to release Verdad.
Okay.
And so this is like the third thing. You can pick nothing if you were disappeared before, or if you were in jail before and you've been released. You can't pick. You can pick C.
I'm gonna pick B again.
Yeah. That's what your character would do. You want to boycott? Absolutely. Okay. So how many A's do we have? All right. How many B's? And how many C's? All right. You're like, I just want to do nothing and stay here. Let's see what happens. Oh no, the A's are picked up and go to jail. You're going to jail again. B, you disappear. C, you go home to find your dog has been murdered. That's actually really sad. That's actually worse than like a human being murdered, I think.
Yeah.
It's always more sad. And there's a note that says you will be next. Okay. Amnesty International letters pour into the office. Verdad's family and friends are encouraged by the international pressure, but the government still denies any knowledge or responsibility of his disappearance. But then, just miraculously, he's released. So you can all come back and be released from jail. You've been found. You're no longer being tortured. But the real take-home message is that this exact scenario, well, not the exact same scenario, but very similar scenarios happen every day. in the world, this kind of thing. Not having the right to speech or these types of things, education, all of that. So, which is very unfortunate. So, take a look at the list that you have, the UN Declaration of Human Rights, and go over this scenario that we just did, and kind of tick off which of those human rights you think were being violated during this scenario, and how many you come up with. Take just a few minutes. What do you guys think? Almost all of them. There's a lot. How many did you guys with? Yeah. What about you guys? Almost all of them?
I want to say at least that.
I think you guys are probably right. So like I said, the take-home message is this happens all of the time. And going through the scenario, so like going a little bit further into this, we're going to do another sort of like little group activity. So we're going to say one is stripped of his post, the government takes over his newspaper, he's barred from working in journalism, unemployed, emotionally scarred from his ordeal, one slips into depression and becomes a recluse. He's no longer able to support Fernando and his family, and Fernando has to drop out of school. So remember, he was financially supporting him in his school endeavors. Drug cartels have started operating in Chilton, Texaco. Fernando's mother nearly escaped a violent crime on her way home. Gangs have been frequenting Fernando's house, attempting to recruit him and threaten him when he says no. Fernando's parents are concerned about his safety, and they spend all of their savings to pay a smuggler to take him and his sister to Arizona for a better life. So now we're going to do another like sort of similar little role playing, but we're going to do it as a group, just sitting there with the people that you're sitting with at your table. Let's say you guys be Fernando, okay? And then the group back there in the left corner, you'll be Fernando's mother. You guys, drug cartel. Politicians back there, okay? So talk amongst yourselves. Talk amongst yourselves and answer these couple of questions. How does the situation make you feel as drug cartel, politicians, Fernando's mother and Fernando? What are the important human rights issues involved from that character's perspective? So talk amongst yourselves, I think like 5 to 8 minutes.
That's what I would then that's what I would say. How exactly?
Anyway.
You know, like that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would use that to say like human rights. We're not doing anything worse than the government. We just use it to play.
Personal interview.
Like, the situation as those brothers just like centrally in.
I really don't know what the situation is. What situation? The general situation about human rights?
Yes, like the situation of Fernando being smuggled and coming over. So you guys live in a cartel, right? So what do you feel about the situation with Fernando? You guys, with the situation of Fernando being smuggled across the border, he's alone with his sister, and how does that affect you guys, or what do you think about that? Yeah.
We would say if they were really part of us, then they would join the cartel and they would go along with it. This is our community business. So we would be part of it.
You right to earn a wage, right?
It's like a whole sort of under us in this way. Obviously, like, it's just like
Yeah, even if I'm talking about poetry stuff, a lot of times, like researching money sometimes you like, but a lot of times, people like a lot of times it's involved in the community. I don't know, you always compare it to maybe an issue we have here.
But like, he just, or he does.
The only thing is, like, there's no way of like, oh, you're going over there, they're gonna be any, not is there gonna be any heat on us because of that? And other people start looking in, that makes it like information travel as well. So other countries start looking in.
And so it's your situation being as the drug cartel?
Yeah, just looking, I guess, trying to figure out what's going on in our country, bringing more attention to our country. Is it not crazy? I can't believe it.
I don't know. Well, so if he's being smuggled across the border, you guys, you know, like you said, you know, you may not be, and it could be one of those things where, you know, money talks. So it doesn't matter who you are, if you got the money to pay us off, then we won't. Because you know, we were saying in the story before that the drug cartel was trying to recruit Fernando. So you might actually like this scenario because now Fernando's away from his parents, so you can like kind of really hone in on him and his sister. He may feel helpless. And,
But he's in Arizona. Oh, maybe.
yeah, he's trying to get to Arizona to an uncle.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how would they be able to hone in on him?
So now he's not away. Now he's away from like any parental figures and that type of thing. So he doesn't have like that elder safety anymore. That's just one little crazy thought.
And then you
Yeah.
yeah, he was there. They were also taking it. And then
They want to make that money back. Everyone either look, either you do it or you don't. You either play ball or you just play ball or nothing. Yeah. Like, oh, Unless it's oh, okay, wait, I think maybe this is something, yeah.
Good when it's pretty.
Kind of old community. They're living in their big houses and they're talking there, so why not? I mean, they're selling drugs, it's not affecting me. Especially, you know,
You guys, friend of mom.
to know, like, how that impacts, you know, there's no losses. Yeah, and then you have, yeah.
No, I haven't got one.
And the safety too, I mean, it's like, I don't want to have all these people at me, if I do, I'm like safe from, because I have people affecting me. Survival. Years, drug cartels are wiped out.
We should. Okay, let's come together. Let's come together and see what you guys came up with. Okay, Fernando, let's hear from Fernando. What does Fernando think about this situation?
It's really scary, and just to think, like, we don't know how old Fernando is, but the fact that they want to recruit Fernando at such a young age is kind of terrifying. The fact that you're about to be separated from your family to get that better life is very makes
Yeah. And does Fernando even have a say in any of this? Like, what if he doesn't want to go? I think it doesn't say the age, and it doesn't say if the sister is older or younger. I don't know. I think I kind of assume that the sister's younger.
Yeah, she's younger.
You know?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, from previous lives, you already think she's younger. Okay. So I just think that she's younger. So you know, it's kind of like he's already has to grow up fast and take care of his sister and kind of be this, you know, role model, you know, figure for his sister too. What are those smugglers called that take people across the border? You know? Coyotes. Yes. And is there any guarantee that he's actually going to end up with the uncle? Because what happens a lot of times? They get sold into trafficking, or they get sold to a drug cartel, or whatever. So it could be that, or just given, you know, to the drug cartel. So you know, there's really no guarantee, and that's really scary that he and his sister will even end up in Arizona with the uncle. And what does Fernando's mom think of this situation? Mom's speechless.
I think they have to stay together no matter what. I think that's
The whole family, like even the parents and from Children of Mexico, like the whole family should go, and not just the Fernando and sister. Okay.
Yeah. Like I was saying, when I was in the car, we had to do a lot of training with DPS and Border Patrol. They said to look out for the families because they don't want the parents to go because the children are valuable. So they would tell the parents, we can't take everybody, we can only take, you know, this we can get across the border. And so they'll just promise to take the children and get them to safety or get the family members. And more than half of the time, they're still watching us. Oh, that's like, so they trained us that you're going to ask them, you know, you've got to separate them and ask the children questions so you find out that the children don't know anything about their mom and dad. If you love them, but they're supposed to be their mom and dad.
And these other folks are pretending to be a part of the family, but they're really traffickers or the coyotes or whatever. Wow. So what are sort of some of the things that you picked up on with this, with being in the Guard? I mean, what sort of things like do you really look out for in that? Just like this is not the right situation, or this is kind of.
We were in very specific areas. So you're not in town. They're not running through town, running through branches. they're trying to stay unnoticed. So if you see a group of 6 people in the middle of a branch, you immediately would know something's wrong. But then you just wanted to kind of, like I said in the beginning, separate them. So that can be questioned. I know if this is really a family and children of neighbors.
And so as Fernando's mom, it's really, I guess, sort of you feel like it's a helpless situation because you always, you want a better life for your child. You want them to, have a better life, better education, that type of thing. And you don't have the money or the means to provide that. It's tough. It's tough. What are those politicians think over there? Did y'all get anything done, politicians? You're working very hard, as you see. What do you guys think? Hey, that's a cop-out. What do you guys think of the situation, though? What do you think of coyotes, illegal immigrants coming across the border, and are you gonna build a wall? What are you gonna do? Are you gonna rent on the Texaco? Oh, see, I'm thinking politician of the United States. It does say U.S. politician.
It does.
Typical politicians, okay.
Well, yeah.
You're safe for a little while. Okay. Who we have to drug cartel.
I think it's been applicable though because, especially with recent events, just with how we take refugees and how we were, it's kind of analogous to this situation.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And obviously we treated how most of us probably.
They were tested.
Yeah. I mean, as people, it's hard to assess it from a typical politician versus how we want to assess it. I guess I don't really know how to answer the question. 'Cause personally, if we have the resources to provide a safe haven for people who are literally having their natural rights taken away from them, then by all means,
So would Fernando get asylum in this case?
As a person, I would say yes, but I don't know if you're wanting us to play like that.
Going back to his country, does that provide danger if he is sent back to his country? Is he in danger?
I would say yes,
I
absolutely.
think you have 50% of us who
I never did anything.
I never get anything done. I think he probably would. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely a danger to go back. It's a danger of the drug cartel. Okay, so the drug cartel, look at these drug cartel folks over here. All right. What do you So what do you guys think of the situation?
So we just saw more opportunity in this whole situation.
The
Y'all are excited.
Goes away, we'd say, okay, if we get in on the smuggling business, we could get in on the parents, now they have nothing to lose, so for us.
we can pay the smugglers twice what the parents pay to smuggle him across.
There you go.
Or if he is taken to Arizona, parents don't have anything to lose, like you said, so they're like, well.
Yeah. It's like, Fernando's kind of like, he's free from, parental protection. Certainly the smugglers probably don't care much, and they're not going to protect him. And if drug cartel puts pressure on them, or threatens them, or threatens Fernando's family back in Children, Texaco, it's just they can get money all around. They're probably pretty excited about that. Very good. What are your thoughts on any of this? Any other thoughts or comments about this whole scenario? It's like you said, I mean, this is real life, really. I mean, it's a fake Children Texaco, fake Fernando, but this is real, really happening. It's really disturbing.
And everywhere too, whether it's refugees from the other atmosphere, or
Yeah.
down south, just people are trying to find a safe haven here, and if we have the resources to provide it, we're not. I mean, I get that there's dangers, but that risk comes with that risk is existent anyways, and at some point the benefit outweighs the risk, and
The benefit of taking people in.
taking people in to keep, if we're gonna block borders to keep that people in.
And I feel like it's a natural, I mean, I don't know, this is just my, opinion, but I feel like it's a natural instinct to want to open your door and bring people in and help others
Right.
in the country and from other countries or wherever and whatever the circumstance. I mean, I even think back to Hurricane Harvey recently, and opening doors and people helping others just because it seems like the right thing to do. Or any kind of, devastating situation, instead of locking your door and loading the gun, and you're gonna fight, and not let anybody in, just seems wrong.
Yeah. And there's things you can do too that minimize the risk. We already have strict customs. I mean, I'm an American citizen and I still go through everybody has been through customs. You go through rigorous levels of getting searched, getting your baggage searched, declare. And granted, there are multiple ways to declare the crowds, but it's not an all or nothing thing. You shouldn't just completely shut your doors. There's regulatory ways to kind of minimize the risk of harmful things coming in and still allowing people to see if they're clear.
Any other thoughts? All right, we'll move on. Okay, so we debriefed. Oh no, Fernando and his sister are deported back to Children's Texaco and reunited with their parents, which, is a good thing, but how they're going to deal with the education piece. Okay, so let me know what you think. Do you agree or disagree with this statement? Different cultures have different moral codes. Therefore, there is no objective truth in morality. Right and wrong are only matters of opinion, and opinions vary from culture to culture. Therefore, there are really no universal human rights. So we can think of so one of the things that we shouted out at the beginning was, well, right to life is universal, right? But if in certain cultures, it's not. Right? So do you think this is true or not? Or do you agree with this or disagree? What is your thoughts?
So I think the absolute part of it is kind of correct, but I do feel there's extremes that have been agreed on. The universal view that extremes are agreed on universally, but it's the middle ground, the gray area.
The extremes being what? Life's pretty important.
Exactly,
Yeah.
right.
I'll take it.
But it's the middle ground that gets really gray. It's where the arguments are.
Okay. So,
With marriages and stuff.
I mean, because,
it's well, we won't kill you, but you can't get paid the same. Don't no freedom of speech.
Right.
All that kind of stuff.
Smaller range.
Being female.
Rights are taken away.
Well, I mean, and I'm not saying that I agree with any of it, but it's that, let's say the marriage thing. You have people who want to get married and would have the same rights, and you have other people who feel well, that's going to lower what people think of my marriage, or it's going to be it's a cultural thing for them, so it devalues their marriage. Does that make sense? And I'm not saying I agree, and I'm saying these are different arguments.
Yeah. So the example
that
of
people have with each other, and that's why it's great.
A group of people saying you don't have the right to get married, to me, doesn't make any sense because really, I mean, my opinion is who's it hurting?
Well, I'm saying
But you're saying there's a group of people that think my marriage is more valuable, or
it's devalued because somebody didn't do it the way that they think it's going to be done. I've heard that excuse used before.
or religion, or it's not.
Right, that people from like a Christian church, not saying that that's wrong or anything, but very extremist, say that the marriage of a homosexual couple is offensive to my, because they're taught that marriage is this sacred unification between a man and a woman, and so they take it personally and think that the marriage of a homosexual couple is offensive to what their belief, or it devalues the sacredness of their marriage. It doesn't really make sense to me, but that has been used.
That's why there's a big argument.
I think if we look at this or any other law that's ever been written, I don't think there's one law that's universal to any country. I don't think there is.
You would agree?
Yeah, especially.
There's really
I
no
don't think
universal
there's one.
right.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
No.
it kind of goes back to what we were saying in the beginning. Like personally, I can see where the statement is coming from, but you can't. And yes, there's human rights, but no, it's not universally the same. But I feel like there can be universal human rights. It's just aspirational, like it hasn't been achieved yet, and it takes a lot of patience to see that being.
What do you? Yeah, what would you say?
Well, I just think that that's completely impossible to do if you're following the human rights, because you can't tell another culture what they believe is wrong, because now you're telling them that their belief is wrong, and that's one of their human rights. So how do you argue that?
I look at this and I see, things that all of us in this room might agree on, like everyone has the right to life.
Yeah.
But even that, even in our culture, even here in America, there's still many gray areas. If somebody wants to die, do they have a right for psychotherapy, or do they have a right for assisted suicide?
Death penalty.
Is a fetus considered a human life or not? So I think the fact is that no matter how hard we work at this, and although we will accomplish good things if we continue to fight for human rights, we are not going to find in ourselves as humans the perfect ultimate set of human rights. It's outside of us.
Yeah.
It's something that's much bigger than what we can just think of in our heads.
So when you're born and you're this little child, do children automatically sense what's right and wrong? Are they just a blank slate and they don't know what their rights are until we tell them what their rights are? Or are they thinking, you know what, it might be wrong to kill my brother or sister? Do they think that? What do you think?
Behavior.
Yeah, there might be some things that are evolutionarily advantageous and therefore we consider them universal, but there are certainly exceptions to every rule. So what might be advantageous in one situation isn't in another, and then on top of that we have a society, which is a whole other level of complexity, and so then we, beyond things that are just evolutionarily advantageous that have just developed so that we can survive in the environment, now we have to survive with other humans, and so we've decided this is okay, that's not, except for in situation X, Y, and Z. So the answer is both.
And it's really hard, yeah.
Probably some things that would just occur because it's existed for a couple billion years, and then there's some things that we just.
Or maybe just because you're in a certain community or culture, or if you think about children being mistreated or not having, given certain rights, or maybe their parents aren't sending them to school like they should and that type of thing. It seems that it's always someone else's voice outside of that has to stand up for others, like we were talking about earlier. And the people's rights that are getting violated are usually the people that are close to us. It's going to be a government, like state government, or someone close to us. But the folks that came up with the UN Declaration of Rights, that was, I don't remember what year they said was it.
1949.
Yeah, I was going to say it's about 50 years old or somewhere around there. It's something that we're always aspiring to achieve, I think, as a planet. But yeah, you would hope that there is the universal right. I always think of right to life, as the big one, but even that one, I think, is probably not universal when we start kind of making it relative to cultures. Any other thoughts that you guys have?
I think the most universal way to think of it is, because obviously we do have different opinions and different beliefs on what's right and wrong, and I think the diversity of that brings a lot of benefit. We don't want everybody to be like robots following the same sets of rules all the time. Just the diversity of even religion is fascinating to me. And I think that has brought it has brought harm, but just like all the different lessons and things you can bring from people of diverse cultures and diverse beliefs is very beneficial. But I think the most universal way you approach human rights is that you're respecting people's right to choose what they believe without their actions and their choices infringing on other people. So like, they can do what they want, they can think what they want, they can believe what they want, but as soon as it starts infringing on other people and their beliefs and, what they believe their rights are, that's where it gets.
But what if they believe their rights are to infringe upon it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Just like a government.
Like if someone's wrong, is like right to punish them for it.
Right, but it's usually the person that's reaping the benefits of that belief.
But what if you're?
But that could be the
usually
cultural
do not
belief.
What if you're in a culture that the decisions are made at certain levels, like certain people are only allowed to make certain decisions?
Right, and I'm definitely not denying that exists and that we should, say our way is better than others. But the victims of those systems, I'm sure they absolutely do not agree that they feel like their rights are being respected.
But do they know?
But that's all they know.
But do they even know that they're a victim?
I mean, I guess that's true.
They may not even know that they're a victim. They're just like, hey, these are the decision makers, and I have to do this. I'm not a victim.
Well,
I'm
I
just
think
more.
that might have been true at one point, but I think with globalization and access to information, like even people in places we would have once considered very remote have access to, news of all different sorts, even places where the news is limited because of whatever firewalls or whatever. So I think while that probably was once very true, I think now people have access to opinions outside of whatever their sphere of influence is. So it becomes even more complicated, because it may be decontextualized. Like now you're getting some information that doesn't apply to your situation. People start asking questions. So it's definitely evolving.
That does apply in all but like maybe there's two cases that I can think of, and one of them is so I have a friend who's in a situation where she her parents kind of they degrade her a lot and they just treat her very badly, and she's kind of stuck in this place where it's not bad enough to seek legal help yet without possibly making things worse, but she's really in an emotional abuse situation. And so when you've been in that situation for all of this time, you come to a place where you start believing what you're being told. You start believing, yes, I am worthless. Yes, I am. It is always my fault. I am guilty in this situation. So I think you do have to deal with that, where people they can't take a stand for themselves because they don't know how, because this is all that they know. And then I think there is also the case like with for example, during the movement for women's suffrage, there were women who were like, no, I believe very firmly as a strong woman that the men are the ones who are supposed to do the voting. And there were women who believed that, and it was their right to believe that that was the way society should best be run.
Yeah. So. Or like in Saudi Arabia, like women just got the right to drive.
And there were probably women who heard that and they're like, that's never been a thing. This is bad,
Yeah. I always think of, so I have children, I have twin girls that are 15, and I think of myself, or even myself, you know, and even everyone in this room, you know, you think of the circumstances of which you came from, your families, you know, your country, your environment, community, and what if you had been born in another family or another community or another environment, and how that might change you. I remember I actually graduated from UTMB, and when I was on one of my rotations, well, they sent me to prison, okay? And so I had to go to TCJ for my rotation, and I was terrified. I'm like, have you seen me? Have you seen my personality? I am not one that needs to go to prison. So I talk everybody's ear off. You know, so I was terrified, and I was upset that I had this rotation. And I'll have you know that that was one of my favorite rotations. I learned so much. But when I was on the women's side, and let's just be real, the women are much more fierce than the men. It was much scarier to go on the women's side than the men's side. When I was on the women's side, basically we were in Dayton. And I don't know if you know this, but Dayton is kind of the hub for all the county. So all the county, you know, folks come, and Dayton's the big hub intake before you go to state prison, and then you're dispersed out. So, and when we're in Dayton, we're all the, you know, all the females on the female side. We basically are just doing all the intake exams. So it's basically doing pap smears, gynecological exams, and just doing this basic, you know, H&P. It's just basic female women's health. And so everyone had, you know, horrible histories. I also put 2 and 2 together, and many of them were on seizure meds. I said, why does everyone have seizures? That's weird. I remember I asked the preceptor there, I said, how come all these folks are on seizure meds? And she said, well, it's something about having your head beat in your whole life. You start having seizures. And that's kind of the background a lot of these women came from. They've been, you know, beaten and abused their whole life, maybe homeless, forced into prostitution at an early age, 13, 14 years old, got into drugs, and then eventually end up, you know, in the system. And I thought, wow, I mean, as a child and growing up in that, it was just a really moment for me to realize that could be me. That could be me. That what if I was brought up in a different family or a different circumstance or a different situation, very easily, that could be me. So I think it's always, you know, that is a huge piece of my empathy with patients, is understanding where they come from, and just that one little piece and that one little connection is huge. Huge. Any other thoughts on what we talked about? All right. Well, we have a few more minutes. Oh, I'm going to skip that part. These were actually Dr. Patel's, some of the photos that she pulled off. And just talking about, you know, the piece of vulnerability is really what we've talked about tonight, that it's us being responsible to have that voice for others. And she loves this example. Okay, so I argue, anyone been to New York and see people urinate on the side of the road? All the time. You see the ghost? She's like, what are you talking about? You see that in town? So I've been in New York several times. It's like I'll be in a cab, and like all of a sudden there's some guy urinating on the side of the road. It's like, there's bathrooms, people. What's going on? But really, you know, it's probably everywhere. So I'm not sure where that sign came from. It's probably somewhere in Galveston. No urinating. Filers will be reported to police. So she thinks even like something, you know, her example is like, what if your right to urinate was taken away from you? You know, your right to urinate. You cannot urinate. And think about just something so simple, you know, as that being taken away from you. So that's just kind of a little side funny example. Nelson Mandela, who is my hero. All right, so I guess I'm supposed to tell you that you're supposed to get an article, but is everyone still continuing on the spring semester? Everyone pretty much? So yeah, okay, so in January, I'm supposed to tell you to bring an article that applies to public health, something in your profession. All right, so we'll end that. I have one more thing for you. Don't go anywhere. Don't get all frisky. I know. We're gonna end on a little bit tougher subject. So one of my passions is anti-human trafficking. Why? I have no idea. It's just ingrained in my heart. I was practicing about 6 or so years ago at Baylor College of Medicine, and I was chatting with one of my patients, and she said, "Oh, I'm going back to school. I'm going to be a social worker because I really want to target human trafficking since it's such a big problem in Houston." And I went, "Huh? What are you talking about?" And this is like 6 or 7 years ago, and she's like, "Oh yeah, it's a thing." And so I did more research, and it just really stuck with me, like what she said. And so fast forward, I came to UTMB about 3 years ago, and I was asking everybody, is this taught anywhere, about human trafficking? I asked School of Medicine, PA school, nursing school, everybody. And they're like, kind of like me, like, what are you talking about? No one knew what I was talking about. So I just took it upon myself. I said, you know what? I'm going to just develop a curriculum to really target education in anti-human trafficking. And so I've partnered with several organizations, and I think my passion is sort of, like a triple threat. So as a mother of twin 15-year-old daughters, I'm enraged, and that's, a piece of it. And I think spiritually, I have that, piece of just that human rights violation. And then certainly as a medical provider, a responsibility to maybe recognize signs of what a victim might look like and how I might be able to intervene in that way. So we've talked about some of these things. Definitely slavery is more prevalent today than any other time in history. There's actually what they call a modern day slavery museum that's through Elijah Rising, which is an organization in Houston, and they basically infiltrated this sex trafficking ring and kind of banged down the doors and got rid of those folks, and they kind of kept some of the pictures and some of those things intact of what was going on with some of those girls, their living conditions and that type of thing. So you can go there and see this, and also they'll take you on a tour around the area of Houston and show you specifically some areas where people are being trafficked. And then you see some people kind of come out and they hate it, look like pimps shaking their hands. So you can actually see some of this, and it helps you to realize what to look for in some of these areas. So tell me, what do you think this answer is? At what age do most victims start to become trafficked? What do you think? PA's or
Maybe, but I think it's
maybe A. What do you think?
I think A.
The answer is actually B. It's 13. I tried to research why it would be 13. So lying awake at night, like I tend to sometimes do, and I come up with these ideas, I decided that between the ages of 12 and 15 is the most vulnerable ages for sex trafficking for basically a couple of reasons. One is, I don't know if you know this, but daycare centers only go up to age 12. So after age 12, you no longer can go to daycare, and you're basically a latchkey kid, or you've got to figure something after school activity or something to that effect. And then, of course, you can't drive until you're 16, so there's like this 12 to 15 where you get off the bus, mom and dad are still working, maybe you walk home, that type of thing. So you're unsupervised, and you kind of have this open time. And sometimes maybe that's also an age where adolescents become more rebellious, run away, there's homelessness, drug use, and that type of thing too. Most of the trafficked victims are American citizens. So when I started researching human trafficking, I was thinking, oh, that's over in Thailand, or, Russian mail order brides, or, just maybe I've seen too many Law and Order episodes, I don't know. But you start thinking that it's like, that's not here. That's not America happening. But really, most of the traffic victims are American citizens. Our girls, 12, 13 years old, right here in America. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Are you saying most of the traffic people in America are American citizens?
Traffic victims are American citizens.
In America?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
In America, yeah, absolutely. Now, some you might get, some you might get that come across the border from Mexico, or some that might, come in internationally, but most of the time it's going to be people right here in the United States. And it's a multi-billion dollar industry. There's really different types of trafficking. So we talk about human trafficking. It could be labor, agriculture. It could be restaurant workers, different types of things. Several of them are sex trafficking that I've highlighted in yellow. And a lot of people don't realize the difference between, well, how does that work, like hotel, motel-based versus commercial front brothel? A commercial front brothel is like, ladies, or maybe a couple of you guys, I don't know. You're driving down the road and there's some little kind of shady salon or massage parlor. Yeah, and somehow, why do you know that that's not the place for you? Like, you know you're not going to go in there. But it's shady, it's open late at night. Why is that massage parlor open at 10 o'clock at night? A little blinky blink sign, it's all weird. Maybe the windows are blacked out. But you're not going to go in there. You know it's not the place for you. But you know something shady or something is going on in there that's not right. That's a commercial front brothel. And they're really good at pinpointing. So if I walked in there, they'll let me in. I can just walk on up, we do a massage, whatever. And I could probably legit get a massage from somebody, pay money, whatever, and it's normal. But can I pick on you? So maybe he goes in, and they know that maybe he's looking for something else, and he goes into another little back room that I didn't get to go in, and some shady things are happening. The residential brothels, that's in places in homes, garages, garage apartment type locations, street-based. So the younger folks, like 13, 14, young people, are not usually the street-based trafficked folks. The prettier commodities are going to be locked up for some time. Those are going to be in the commercial front brothels and that type of thing. And if they're really young, they're going to be, they're going to really hide those because, of course, it's illegal. If they're going to get caught and that type of thing. So they're going to hide that for a few years. And then the street-based are those that have been sort of brainwashed and beaten into submission. They're not going to run. They know better. And they may have a reason to not run. Maybe they have a child that they're holding. And that's another thing that I never really thought of, too, is that some of these trafficked victims that have been in the line for so long, they've gotten pregnant, they've got a baby, they actually have a house where they take care of all the babies. And so they have a reason. Some of those older ones they have a reason to not run. And so they don't. The life expectancy for anyone in this life is about 6 to 7 years. And it's really a couple of different ways. The life expectancy, because so many things go wrong in your health. You don't have dental care. You don't have regular gynecological care. You have multiple STDs, renal failure, maybe all these other things are happening because you've had multiple infections, back pain, fractures, unhealed, and that type of thing. So in that way, you could have a limited life expectancy. And then the other realm of thinking about life expectancy is, well, for 6 or 7 years, you're pretty much used up, and I'm just going to toss you to the streets, and I'm going to go to the next 12 or 13-year-old. So by the time of age 21, I don't want you anymore. You're old, you're used up. Maybe you're addicted, I've got you addicted to drugs and everything else. And they're so brainwashed, they're going to use them to be the caregivers for the next group of young folks that they can get. So when you pinpoint someone in your clinic or as a medical provider, I always thought it would be just your typical creepy old guy with a young girl that doesn't really, this is weird, that's a creepy dude, this, who is he? That's not her boyfriend or her dad. That's a weird situation. But actually, a lot of times they're female. So you got a young girl, maybe they come into the ER with an older woman pretending to be mom, aunt, cousin, somebody. Other young girl may not speak English, or maybe she does, but they're not going to let her talk. So the other person's going to be giving a lot of the history there. And then maybe there's a cell phone laying out. Just, you don't really know it, but traffickers on the other line listening to every word to make sure that nothing's given away. That young person is not going to have probably ID on her person. She's not going to be able to provide any insurance or money. The other person's going to do all the talking. And that person's going to have to be really pretty far gone. So it's not like, oh, we think she's got a UTI. No. She's going to be severely beaten, renal, hepatic failure, multiple fractures, maybe rampant STD that, there's going to be something pretty big going on with the person. Because the traffickers know if we send that person to ER or any medical provider, that you guys are smart. You'll figure this out. Like, this is shady. This is weird. We got to intervene somehow. So they're not going to do that. And actually, the drug dealers have gotten so good. We actually have to stay ahead of these traffickers. The drug dealers have gotten so good, they actually deal antibiotics now. And they know exactly the ones that treat gonorrhea, chlamydia, and all these things. So they'll deal antibiotics to these traffickers. Get them cleaned up, back on the street. So we always have to stay a little bit ahead because we can't always intervene like we think that we can. I thought when I got into this that I was going to be on the front lines, banging down doors and we're going to get them. And one of my mentors in another organization said, okay, just hang on, hold your horses. We just need someone to educate. Just go out and educate people because people don't know about this. They don't know what a big problem it is. They don't know how rampant it is in our communities. So what do you think about this answer? Which city has the highest number of traffic victims in the nation? What do you think? You think it's Houston? Houston or Miami? What else do you think? What do you think?
Miami.
Miami? New York? Okay. Well, it's actually Houston, right here in our backyard. The reason why they think that is because, this is obviously very hard to track. You just don't go down and you figure out, this is count numbers and how this is a big problem. But really, Houston, Harris County is the county that gets the most phone calls on trying to make attempts to rescue victims. So the most phone calls that are coming in are right from Harris County. So this is a little map of just showing some of the hot spots in the country. So all the red are the really big hot spots. And you can see Houston is definitely one of them. They think that Houston is number one for many reasons. One is we have 2 international airports. We have Fort Galveston, Fort Houston, right here in the Bay. We're on the Mexican border, very easy to come in, and we're very multicultural here in Houston. So I was reading an article, it said that there's over 93 languages and dialects spoken in Houston. So, blend in very easily. And there's Interstate 10, which you can jump on I-10 and go east, and you're out of state in no time. So these truckers, they can transport in no time across Interstate 10. And also going up Nashville has become a big spot up there as well. Mostly from the trucking industry. Risk factors, so there's a lot, as you can see. Individual risk factors, family risk factors, community, societal, a lot. When I say this is in our backyard, I'm being literal in that. My daughter came home from school several months ago. She said, Mom, did you know that they broke up a prostitution ring at my school? She goes, she's in Clear Creek ISD. She goes to Clear Springs High School. I'm like, what are you talking about? She goes, oh yeah, there's a prostitution ring. Some of them were cheerleaders. Huh, interesting. And I had to school her, tell her, honey, that's not prostitution. They were being trafficked. And what happens is, this is big time Houston. They've gotten some big, broken up some big rings in Spring. Katy? Katy's huge. Big time. Why is that? Jump on I-10, you're out of there in no time. So it's literally right in our own backyard. And what happens is the traffickers, it's kind of this honeymoon, romancing, they are very good at pinpointing who is vulnerable. And, no one's ever told, a girl thinks like, no one's ever told me they love me or this type of thing. And they find out this older guy, maybe he's like 19, 20, I don't know, I'm just making up a scenario. And he becomes boyfriend. So they have different roles. They may not be the main trafficker, but they're a recruiter. And so this young guy may like be at the mall, he may be hanging out, whatever. And man, you're beautiful, this or that. Maybe start buying her things, taking her on dates. And man, this young girl that's, maybe she's a cheerleader or whatever, high school, and she doesn't have a lot of parental, guidance and that type of thing. And also social media is another whole big problem when they just get on, oh yeah, meet me here, and I don't know anything about Snapchat and all this other stuff, but you get on and you can easily meet people that way. But they start buying things. Yeah, my guy bought me a Louis Vuitton, or these boots and all this kind of stuff, and they start buying them things and kind of romancing them into this life. And then that young girl in the high, and they still let them go to high school. They're still going to school. And so then they still go to school, and they'll say, hey, you should come over, after school, and my daddy or my friend, buy you some stuff too. And so they allow that young girl to kind of become a mini recruiter and get more girls. So it's not like a snatch and grab, beat them over the head, and take them in your car or stuff them in a trunk. This is a very strategic thing that takes time, and it's actually now being taught in the school system, and teachers, even flight attendants, and different occupations are being taught how to pinpoint these things. Definitely in the school system and teachers. The disturbing thing is that now human trafficking is going to probably one day surpass drug dealing or arms dealing, because you can sell drugs one time, you can sell guns one time. But to sell the human body over and over is a much more higher commodity. And really the minimum is probably, for a lot of these girls, is 30 times a day is probably a minimum. Everything, when they have any thought to their mind of what they want. Oh, you want to take a shower? Go bring me 3 Johns. Oh, you're on your menstrual cycle, you need a tampon? Bring me 5 Johns. Oh, you're hungry? You want a meal? Go bring me 3 Johns. Anything that you want. Oh, you want actual clothing? They don't have clothing. Sometimes they just have like a little sheet. They're stuck in a residential brothel or some situation, and they just have like a little sheet on them, and that's it. So, very disturbing. These are some pictures, actual real pictures in Houston area. 5901, Thai massage parlors. Some of these places are shut down, but when you shut them down, they'll pop up right down the street. They all communicate with each other. They may even be cousins or related or friends, some of these traffickers. So if they've got the heat on them with law enforcement, they'll shut down and then just block down the street, rename it, call it something else. It's really hard to have proof because, you can drive on the street and these places are shady. And it's like, why don't you just go in there and, bust them up? I don't know all the legalities and all of the hiccups with the law enforcement. I just know what I can do as an educator, as a mom, as a person, for human rights and anti-human trafficking. That's all I know. There was a story that I read, this little old lady, she was enraged that another one of these brothel type places moved into her neighborhood And she was talking to her pastor, and she said, well, I just can't believe they moved right into our neighborhood. And he said, wait, calm down. What would you do if someone moved into your neighborhood? And she thought for a minute, and she said, well, I'd bake them muffins. And he said, well, go do that. You bake them muffins. She's like, okay, that's weird. So she bakes some muffins. She goes into this, weirdo massage parlor place with her plate of muffins. And, they ate them all up, all the guys and everything. And then she goes to law enforcement and says, okay, there's 4 of them and this and that. And she is becoming an informant, giving information to law enforcement. And she goes all over baking muffins and delivering them to all of these commercial brothels. So I thought that was pretty cool. And that's a tiny little thing that's making a huge difference. So that's the type of thing when we talk about education. There's little things that we can do. It doesn't have to always be busting in and breaking down the doors. We can do a lot of things, but just a small way. Backpage is something that used to be live. It's kind of like a Craigslist, but it's selling people, basically. And it got shut down just 2 weeks before the last Super Bowl here, which I thought was pretty cool because Super Bowl, interestingly enough, is a #1 time for human trafficking. Anytime there's a Super Bowl in any city, it's a scary thing, mainly because women are thought of as entertainment, and this goes along with sports, and even big conferences, too, in a lot of cities. These are some pictures that were taken from Elijah Rising, the organization that actually gives tours to some of these things. And when I say tour, it's like a van tour. They'll drive you around, and they'll basically just point out some of these places. And I laugh because, literally, we drove up one time when I was on one of these tours, and there was, this complete, if I could even paint a picture, it was like wearing, I don't know, like a beefy guy with a tight black T-shirt on, and some kind of dress pants, and his hair was slicked back. Just real like a bouncer looking kind of guy. And he was, mad at us, for driving by. But this is a picture of kind of a back room of a cantina. This is a Thai massage parlor, and this is a residential brothel, probably a back room or garage type condition. I know we're running out of time, but because I wanted to address any questions that you might have, these are some of the health consequences. I already alluded to some of them, but these are just some of the things that you might be able to pick up as a medical provider that could be some of the issues going on. Certainly dental problems. They don't have dental care. They may have lost teeth. They may have a dental abscess or that type of thing. Certainly a lot of back pain, a lot of pelvic pain, anything gynecological, certainly untreated other underlying medical conditions, and a lot of psychiatric issues, PTSD, drug, alcohol dependency is usually always an issue. Sometimes these folks, they don't really, well, not sometimes, a lot of the time, they don't know that they're a victim. And I know that seems strange to think about. It's kind of like, when we talk about human rights, it's like a no-brainer. Like, don't you know that this isn't right or this isn't cool? It's kind of like what you were saying. It's like when you're told so many times that you might be worthless or whatever, or abused and used so many times, that's just your way of life. But then you also have this track record saying, but I love you, and this type of thing. Maybe that trafficker could be the father of a child that you had during the life. So that could be even an issue. So you have this this idea that you're not a victim. That's my boyfriend, or that's somebody else, and you don't feel like you're really a victim. And it's later that these folks have been picked up for prostitution, and they're in prison, that they actually go through a lot of counseling and then realize in prison that, you know what, I don't think that was really right, or he really wasn't, out for my best interest and that type of thing. And they actually learn to self-identify much later in life and not during the time that they're actually being a victim. And it's not our place, unfortunately, because you can get in a lot of legal issues. It's really difficult. If you come across someone and you're like, because the first thing you want to do is like, damn, girl, this you're in a bad situation. Like, this is not right. And you want to tell them what's up. That, yes, this is bad. You're a victim. But guess what? Who are you? They're not going to believe you. They're not going to believe you for a second. So you're not actually helping the situation. When you try to, like, kind of force that they're a victim, they're just going to back up and back away. So that's actually not the right thing. But some of the reasons why they don't come forward, they may not speak English, they may have a language barrier, certainly shame, fear for themselves, fear of other family members. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. Or if they have a child, or maybe a family back home that has been threatened. And usually these traffickers, they will make good on their threats. They really do. I have this whole slide set available on Blackboard, so if you want to go back to it or see some of the other questions, I have a curriculum that I'm developing that I'm hoping to disseminate to all the schools, nursing, medical school, on how to recognize victims. And so it goes a lot more. Some of the students, PA students last year, were very inspired and passionate by a lot of this, and so they developed an organization called SWAT, Students Working Against Trafficking, which is now university-wide here on campus that you can join. So if you're interested in more of this, you can certainly email me. My email is available on Blackboard and the slide set as well. I hate to leave, and there's some more about diagnostic evaluation that you can look at. I hate to leave you with such a heavy topic. But what questions do you guys have? Any questions for me? Yes, sir.
If you are suspicious about trafficking in the clinic, what would happen if you, how would you take care of that? Was that whatever service, CPS, for example? Does that have any consequences?
Absolutely. So if it is someone underage, you actually have an obligation. You've got to report that. You have to. And so that's what makes it difficult, because those cases a lot of times don't come to us because they know better. But yes, if someone is underage, you have a legal obligation to report that. And you can even let them know, like, I have to report the situation. You don't have to say, hey, guy, I think you're shady or whatever. But you don't have to tell them, that you're reporting it. You just report it. If they are an adult, that makes it a lot tougher, because then you almost, and we could equate it with, like, say, just a domestic violence situation. Sometimes you're enraged for them, you want to help them, give them your number, in their pocket or something to help them, but actually you're putting them in danger, because they're not always going to get out immediately right away. They got to go back to whoever is, actually doing the abusing. And so sometimes that's a really difficult situation. So you kind of have to try, if you can, separate them, whoever they're with, the cell phone, the person, whatever. Try and get them one-on-one and get a better history if you can. Stalling also helps. Like, we're waiting for an interpreter. We're not allowed to have family members, or you could make something up. We're not allowed to have a translator that's a family member or something. We're waiting for somebody. Just stall is also a good tactic too. We had some students last year around the Super Bowl time, because giving a business card or something like a phone number puts them in danger. So during the Super Bowl, we actually students did a fundraiser collecting lipsticks. So they're like, what's the connection there? But actually, Elijah Rising, one of these organizations, they took in our 250 lipsticks that we raised, and they put, the little SKU barcode that has tiny little numbers that don't make sense on the little lipstick. Well, actually, they put a little sticker on there that did make sense, a barcode with a 1-800 number, real tiny on the lipstick. And they gave out these lipsticks to the women. So the trafficker doesn't mind if you got a lipstick, because that's actually making their little commodity pretty. And so they don't mind that. But if you have a business card or something, then that's going to put them in danger. So it's pretty cool that they gave out 250 lipsticks, and there's over 300 arrests during Super Bowl, specifically against human trafficking. So it's pretty cool. What other questions do you guys have? It's a heavy topic, I know. I'm sorry to leave you on this. but it's something that's certainly empowering when you can do something about it, even if it's something small. In Galveston, I mean, you don't have to go global to like look for this kind of thing. I mean, you can just go right here in Galveston. There's something shady. Can I just tell you? There's something shady going on with that place right there on the corner. You know what I'm talking about? On is that 12th Street or what street is that? It's called Sandy's little. Isn't it called Sandy's? You know what I'm talking about? That little house bar thing. What street is that? It's like right there on Strand.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? Is it a liquor store? What is that thing?
I actually
It's a bar?
I could say something about that because I park over there because it's free. I always get a police officer to drive me back to my car if it's not during daylight hours. But one time a police officer did drop me off at my car. I got in my car, I started driving away, and I noticed another car behind me started following me. And I took a really weird way home, wrapped around the neighborhood, and it was still following me. So I called campus police, and they actually couldn't get to me in time. By the time I'd done enough circles, they realized I was trying to lose them, and they drove off.
Oh my God.
It was right next to that store. So
I'm telling you,
keep an eye on
that is some shady stuff going on. I want to find out what's going on because it's like it's been different things. If you've been here for a couple of years, it was like a little market store, and then it was called something else, and then why is it right next to it? Has a little house with stairs and all of dilapidated looking house right next to it, right? And weird little staircase going up to that room. There's something going on. But then again, I think there's something going on. I mean, I can't even get my nails kind of crazy right now for Christmas, but I can't even get my nails done without questioning the poor nail person. How long have you been here? What's your name? I'm asking them all these questions. And then we were at a restaurant down the street, and the waitress had a Russian accent. I was like, I should give you a Russian nail order, right? You don't know. My colleague was like, would you stop? You think everybody is traffic, But I'm like, I'm looking. I mean, it's really right there. I mean, that's a shady place. I'm just saying. All right, guys. Good night. Thank you. Yeah, and if you want to join SWAT, then certainly email me, or you can email the organization SWAT UCM. Yeah, we did that specifically for Super Bowl, but we can do it any time of the year. Elijah Rising will take them. We also do, I partner with several organizations, and we do different things like, one thing that was kind of disturbing that I didn't realize, with the babies and the children that were involved in and so one year, like around Easter, they wanted us